This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Eric Pearce. Eric is an entrepreneur, founder of Pearce Media Group, a digital advertising and consulting agency. Thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you as well. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, it all started about 21 years ago professionally. That's where I got my start into marketing and sales. It started with a family business. We had a commodity brokerage firm. It was about a $12 million a year business. And I was the main guy for marketing. I helped, raise accounts, basically generate revenue, right? And this was before social media came along. This was before a lot of the channels that are available now and a lot of the technology. So it was based in marketing and phone calls is really what it came down to, and networking, establishing, referral partners and things like that. And so, I went on this long journey of learning how to be a good marketer with content before content is what it is now. Down that road, I had to find creative ways to solve issues of getting customers because of regulations. We had heavy regulations, they're even heavier now, but heavy regulations in the business. So I really took a lot of creativity and problem solving. That really started my journey of becoming a marketer. And I've always been a marketer, where it's didn't matter if it was in business or with other people, it just always came out of me in some form or fashion. And so make a very, very long story short, I could very easily go over that 21-year journey, but I had my ups and downs just like everybody else did and does. In the last few years, I started looking at Facebook, and I watched Google when it came out. I watched YouTube when it came out. I actually remember sitting at the desk in the office one day, and I heard some kind of news about this YouTube thing, and I'm like, what is a YouTube? And so I started doing my research and found out that it's a place where people could share videos, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Who would want to do that? And so it was just one of those things where you hear about it, and I started paying attention to it. I could see the value of it early on, and I remember thinking back then, this is probably going to be something pretty big, even with the word or the name, the brand of it. It's going to be interesting to see where this ends up. And that was when I first started. What's it been, 12 years now for YouTube? 12, 15 years, somewhere in that area. Anyway, saw Facebook come out, had no idea what it was about. It didn't make any sense back then. Started watching it. A few years later, when they brought advertising out, I was kind of going, well, I bet this must have been the plan all along. It had to be. How else are they going to produce revenues and so on? And so anyways, so I kept watching it. I've never been one to jump onto trends just because I think it's a trend and I want to get ahead of everybody and all that. Usually it's the pioneer that has the most difficult trip. Those that follow have a much easier trip, going back to the old wise saying of standing on the shoulders of giants, learning from wisdom rather than learning from hard knocks. And so I've never been one of those that just would jump on the bandwagon or go try to pioneer something. I would just wait to see if it was a fad or a trend. And if it's something that would continue on, that would be a sustainable system, if you will. And I saw Facebook just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And I'm going, okay, I think this is something that's going to last a while. I'm going to jump in. And there's a ton of people that were ahead of me. But what happened is I went through, you know, I saw the courses. I started meeting the guys that were creating courses and all that. I'm kind of fast forwarding here a little bit. It was about 4 or 5 years ago when I started really digging into Facebook and really learning about the advertising side of things. And that's become the focus. I looked at Google when I first got started, in the digital side of things. But Google was just, at the time, and still is, rather expensive, a lot more than it used to be. Facebook is still in a little bit of an infancy. Not to say it's an infant, but a little bit of an infancy as far as the advertising goes. That's why the pricing is the way it is. So anyway, I started looking into it and doing my research, as I always do, and started an agency. And I'm now on we're on kind of the second wave of that agency because I started realizing that there was a little bit of a broken model in the agency space, and I decided that I wanted to change that. And the only way I figured to change that is to be a disruptor. And so that's what I've started doing. And the model I'm using that we've changed over to, there's not a lot of people doing it. It's been heard of, but the way I'm doing it's just a much different route than what most agencies have heard of. So that's kind of leads me to where I'm at now. And it's been quite a journey. It's been a fun journey.
Yeah, and I think a good point you touched on, that a lot of things come in terms of trends and some things stick around, but no matter if it's a trend or not, marketing doesn't change over time. You still need good content, and then you package it in a form that's consumable on that specific platform. Exactly.
It's like going back to the 5 stages of market sophistication. That has been around since that came out of what's his name's book from the 1950s, I think it was. It's like you can go through some of these classic books and it's still the same principles. It's just that they're applied in different manners or on different channels to make it fit. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and a lot of things, I mean, Facebook, I agree, is still growing. Things are popping up in terms of you should still test it. And if you have success there, go for it. If not, focus on something else and have some kind of core competency. But I think what I found over the years is not necessarily putting, your eggs in one basket. With Google, it was a wild west for a while, and then nobody thought they were going to get penalized for any reason. And then he started rolling out penalties for, bad content, for bad links, and so on and so forth. And people had to scramble to something else.
Yep, exactly. And that happens with really with any business or anything new, is that it's kind of a wild west to start with, and then they start establishing rules, and you get restrictions can be good and bad. I think it's good in the right ways, if that makes sense. It might sound like a double positive there, but sometimes it can be not as good, but you can turn it into a positive. For instance, Facebook's recent algorithm change. To me, that was an opportunity because I was thinking, okay, this is really going to weed out those that aren't good marketers, and they're trying to leverage the targeting rather than actually being good marketers and studying, doing the research, doing the homework, and putting effort into it and learning psychology and learning, what makes people tick, rather than, hey, I can target this, I can target this, I can say, buy this now, and they buy it. It's like, you can't do that. You can do it for a certain period of time, but it doesn't work anymore, especially in the housing market.
Yeah, I agree. And I think both with the paid and I think the Facebook organic algorithm, you can still reverse engineer it and see how you can amplify it naturally without spending additional funds. It won't be obviously to the level before that algorithm change rolled out, but you still can kind of hack the system to benefit you in a kind of white hat way.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you.
So what motivates you to succeed?
A couple of things. Number one would be my family, because to me, my family represents freedom, and freedom is my really underlying goal. I've never really been one that has been, that has enjoyed being told what to do. I tend to just instinctively kind of go against that grain, whatever it is. And I've always liked proving people wrong. Sometimes it comes to even between my wife and I'm always like, I told you, when those kind of situations come up, she's like, I know, whatever, But yeah, it's family and freedom. And, some people can put stuff in there like, yes, I like private jets. Yes, I like cars. Yes, I like, a luxury lifestyle. But what gets you that luxury lifestyle? Usually it's freedom, because you created that freedom in your life. And usually the motivating factor, again, goes back to family for me, because I see my daughter and I'm like, okay, I want to be able to spend more time with her. I want to be able to take my wife to places, take my family traveling, and you need freedom to be able to do that. And so that's really the motivating factor for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's kind of focusing on the journey and the value you get out of it to, you keep growing regardless. Well, at least you should, as an individual, as a business owner, and, developing and building that freedom. And I think all those material things are good, like you said, but if there's nothing else at the core, it's going to fade eventually, because things happen in your life. If you have a setback or a loss of a close loved one, it puts things into perspective and shows how much those material things don't necessarily matter at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I mean, speaking on that note, I've had some rough family losses here in just the last couple of years. And it's like, when that happens, you're close to these people, these family members I was very, very close with. And it's like, when something like that happens, or some kind of health situation comes up, I think when those things happen, they can shake you in a good way, where you do actually realize what's important in life. And, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the things, all the, those goals accomplished. But when it comes down to it, it's like being able to have family and being able to have the freedom to enjoy your family, to smell the roses. I think that really is at the core of all of us. Some people, I think, tend to disguise it a little bit, just because they might have gone through, hardship in their life. So they kind of value some things more than, I can call myself out on that. There's some things that I value that are material things, just because, I didn't have them growing up necessarily. And so now it's like, I have this driving force that I'm going to get mine, but that's not the actual motivating factor for me. That's a short-term, hey, I can get this in 6 months kind of thing. But when it comes to freedom and family, that's such a long-term goal. That comes back to my building an empire motto. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think all the material things are oftentimes, obviously, end results of that success and that journey. So
exactly, and usually the successful business people, as you know, use those for marketing and use those to advance their business in the first place. So it's kind of one of those things where that's one thing that's changed over the years a little bit, just a little bit, where now you can. Whoever knew you could take a car and the car could make you money because of YouTube, Facebook, social media channels, and it produced revenue for you. So it's kind of like, sometimes those material things can be used for good as well. You can get your message across, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Some people use it to a level where I don't necessarily agree with on social, but social is kind of a highlight reel of your life anyway. So. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's like, there's a lot of agencies nowadays that are trying to brand at a level that they're not at yet. I actually have some things in my mind right now as I'm saying it. And it's kind of, to me, I think you've got to be careful with it, because some of them can be very deceptive. You're portraying something that's not a truth. And in the end, if it's not a truth and it's a lie, it's going to bite you. When you stay close to the truth, or your truth, as Gary Vee would say, that's when you're going to win in the end. And I agree with that, because you've got some of these guys now that are trying to brand with, private jets, for example, when they can't afford it. Like, I understand the cost of that, because my family and I had owned about 15 private aircraft over a 10-year period. So I understand the cost that's involved with it. And when I see some of these guys, I'm like, there's no way. I know what you're selling. I know what you're doing. There's no way. Why would you even brand like that? It doesn't make sense to me, because I think you can brand at the level that you're at, and you can relate to people. When you find a relating point where you can establish rapport, that's what I'm looking for. When you can establish rapport, you can start to build a relationship from that, because you relate to where your audience is at, for example, those that you're attracting, and they go on the journey with you. I think there's more value in a journey process than there is at saying, hey, I'm at this level, when you're not. And then they find out later, and then you end up losing because it's now biting you in the butt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people perceive, so they don't say, but let's say they're in a jet sitting. They're maybe just sitting and not even going on the ride, got somebody, into that private airport just to get a picture, and then paint that story like it's theirs, or they fly private jets all the time. There's people even now making money off of influencers, basically building like luxury sets. So it looks like an interior of a jet, and you go in there for a photo shoot, and you're not on the jet. So it's like kind of smoke and mirrors.
It's hilarious to me. It's one of those things where, to be honest, it's ridiculous in my opinion. It's like, why do you need to do that? And then you find out that, in real life, they're just trying to get there. You know what I mean? And so I think branding is something that is going to be just like, social media exposes. I'm taking words from Gary Vaynerchuk now, but social media exposes people. I think branding on social over the next couple of years is really going to expose a lot of people, because if they're not living in what's true to them, if they're not meeting people where they're at, going both ways, meaning they're not meeting their audience where they're at, and they're also not portraying or not living their true life, it's going to turn around on them, and they're going to have to recover from that. But if they go the other way and they actually say, hey guys, look, this is where I'm at. I'm going on this journey. Do you guys want to come along with me? Let's build our empire together. Let's build our dream lifestyle together. And I think that's a much more longer term angle to take.
Yeah, I agree.
This is something that's been, I've been preaching this for the last few months now, probably the last 6 months, really. I've been preaching this just because it's something that's actually bothered me quite a bit, because I see so many people taken advantage of in the digital agency space, especially when it comes to courses. I see all this stuff happening. I'm like, people, come on, wake up. It's time to see what's happening. So anyway, that's I could go on and on about that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the course space is, a little iffy for me, because a lot of the courses don't add value, and obviously are smoke and mirrors in terms of marketing, in terms of what they've gotten the students that have purchased them, false testimonials and stuff like that, where a lot of the time, you mentioned Gary Vee, he gives a lot of information in terms of marketing for free. That's beneficial to a lot of people. Obviously, a lot of people listen to him because of that kind of grittiness in the motivational space. I started listening to him from the marketing aspect, because he gives a lot of stuff away from free, and a lot of it's common sense. So I think a lot of courses, you're paying for common sense, and you're not getting that added value that should be monetized. I
totally agree. And the other part of that bothers me even more is that a lot of the courses that are out right now are copy and paste of the courses they took. And so they're turning around and basically they're flipping courses and portraying it like they created it. And that's what I'm like, that's the deception that bothers me.
Yep. So, they're not necessarily an expert per se, but an expert of the course material.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
So what's one thing that you may have seen as a weakness that you've had that you've turned into a strength and utilized today?
Fast decision making. That was a weakness of mine for the longest time, and I still struggle with it to this day. Because I'm one of those people that I was raised taught to make slow decisions, be slow to make decisions so you don't make the wrong one, rather than just make the decision, find out so you can move on to the next decision and eventually get to the right one. And so I'd get, analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, because I would overanalyze things, and I missed a lot of opportunities because of that. And I actually had to retrain myself to get to the place where I can make a decision faster. And it was like exercising a muscle is what it reminded me of, because I reached a point a few years back where I was just like, okay, I'm tired of missing opportunities. I want to be able to take opportunities by the horns and run with it, but I have to make these decisions faster. When I see an opportunity, I have to jump. And so what happened was I just started basically journaling to myself, notating to myself, saying, you are an expert, fast decision maker. And I started looking for opportunities. So, everywhere I go, I'm like, okay, there's opportunity everywhere around me. Take it, do something with it, start. And so what happened is nowadays, I still kind of struggle with that a little bit, because that instinct still kind of kicks in, but I'm noticing that instinct has been changing where, I can look at something, get some data real quick, and just say, all right, do it, or don't do it, and move on. And that's something that, as a business owner and what I'm doing is really vital, especially making big decisions. It kind of goes along with my favorite saying. I used to say, ready, aim, fire. I just reversed that, fire, aim, ready. Because you're never going to be truly ready to make some decisions, especially opportune decisions. So it's like, just take it and figure it out later. And so that's been one of my biggest weaknesses, also procrastination. And so, overcoming procrastination is just whatever you're doing, stop and do it. And that's another thing I still battle. So those are the two big things for me has been fast decision making and procrastination.
Yeah, I agree. I think it cripples entrepreneurs in terms of the speed that they can get to where they're looking to get. Obviously, everybody's going to overthink a decision, especially a big one, or something that you choose, to do. Like we spoke off air that you want to start your own podcast at some point. I think there'll be a lot of times that you're going to doubt yourself. Like you don't have the right equipment. You don't necessarily have all the pieces figured out. And that may hold you back. But I think if I had the opportunity, I would have started my podcast a lot earlier. I mean, I am happy that I started it when I did, but I think it's one of those things that you have to make the decision, like you said, and, things are going to go wrong regardless at some point. Yeah,
exactly. I totally agree.
So what's one piece of advice you may have for the audience, personal or professional?
I would say, I would go back to my own weaknesses, honestly. And I would say to the audience, if you're wanting to, let's say if you're in a position where you're wanting to make a change in your life, or you're at a certain level and you want to get to another level, learn to make faster decisions. Just make the decision and go or don't go. Usually I prefer to make the decision to go or to do something so that I know for sure if it was right or not. Kind of like being a yes man. Do you remember that movie that Jim Carrey came out with, Yes Man? I don't know if you saw that or not, but basically the whole point was he wouldn't take opportunities, and he goes to a conference. He decides that he's going to say yes to everything that comes up. And what happens is it turned him things that he was afraid of into things that he enjoyed. And he got all new life experiences. He learned how to do different things that he didn't know how to do before. He went places he never imagined he would go, went on all these adventures. And so I would say one big piece of advice would be to become a yes man at the things that you have a weakness to. Fast decision making can cure a lot of things, even procrastination. Because if you can do something without thinking about it, or thinking, I don't really feel like doing it, just do something, start somewhere, start with the first step, and go. I think that would be the biggest piece of advice. And don't be afraid to be I would say I have a second piece, which would be, don't be afraid to be a disruptor. If you're going against the grain, that can be a good thing. Market saturation is something that I look at especially in the space we're in. And sometimes there needs to be a disruptor, and that disruptor can be like the next Amazon.com. Amazon was a disruptor in many ways, and now they're just huge. They're just massive. And Jeff Bezos, the wealthiest man in the world, he's a disruptor, and look what he's accomplished in a very short period of time too. To do that in 25 years, that's pretty impressive. So follow that suit. Take action faster.
Yeah, I think so also. And even like you said, the idea may be crazy or it doesn't fit the mold to your industry. But if you have a plan of execution, and it's not only kind of a dream, but taking that and moving as fast as possible with it. I mean, people said the same thing to begin with about Airbnb. That's the largest property technically company with no real estate. Uber, Lyft, same thing. So I think it's just running with that idea, no matter how crazy it is, if you have some kind of outline plan.
It's not crazy until people find out how good it is.
Yep, that's true. I agree. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you or anything else you may have going on?
Absolutely. My website is 100x.com. It's HNDRDX. That is the brand that I've created for realtors and loan officers, actually. But we also do licensing for other agencies that want to automate their business. So it's part of the what I call the 100x movement, which is to automate your business to build your empire, live your dream lifestyle now. They can reach me at Facebook. I'm Eric J. Pearce. Pearce is spelled Pearce. So it's Eric J. Pearce on Facebook. On Instagram, Eric Pearce on LinkedIn. Believe I'm Eric J. Pearce on TikTok. You can find me on any social media for the most part. YouTube, Eric J. Pearce. Let's see if there's any email inquiries, info@100x.com. And also my website, as I already mentioned. So those are the main things. I'm very reachable.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
Absolutely. Been my pleasure. It was nice meeting you, Roman.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk from Roman Prokopchuk's Digital Savage Experience podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, so that's always good. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.